The explosive life of George II, the aggressive monarch. In the tumultuous backdrop of 18th century Europe, King George II's life unfolded as a riveting saga, marked by swift romantic alliances, perilous battles, and close brushes with mortality. From a clandestine courtship that defied societal expectations to a royal heir's audacious foray into military affairs, George II's journey defied the conventions of his time. Join us as we delve into the explosive chapters of his life, revealing a monarch whose story unfolds like a captivating drama of love, war, and the relentless pursuit of power. While George II held the title of King of Great Britain, his true passion lay in engaging in battles rather than royal duties. His appetite for conflict extended even to clashes with his own family, concealing scandalous secrets behind palace doors. This monarch was not only a reverent lover and a formidable warrior, but also led a life filled with astonishing twists. Discover the intriguing life surrounding George II. Despite being one of Great Britain's longest reigning monarchs and an emblem of his era, King George II wasn't British by birth. Born in Hanover, Germany in 1683, this Teutonic ruler's noble parents instructed him in French as his primary language, aligning with the court's linguistic preference. However, this revelation about George and his family is merely the tip of the iceberg. George II hailed from a disgraced family, with his parents Sophia Dorothea and George Louis, known for their scandalous affairs. The breaking point occurred in 1692 when his mother's extramarital affair led to the dissolution of their marriage, casting her into imprisonment in a castle, a scandal that resonated throughout Europe. Despite never seeing his mother again, George II followed in her scandalous footsteps. Following his own disastrous marriage, George's father, George Louis, aimed to spare his son from a loveless, pre-arranged union. However, still reeling from scandal, he initiated political negotiations for George to marry Hedvig Sophia of Sweden. Little Georgie Porgy, however, had plans of his own. George vehemently opposed copying his parents, steering clear of a loveless marriage and potential royal scandal. While his father sought to arrange a union with Hedvig Sophia, George orchestrated a covert plan, demonstrating a level of cunning that would impress contemporary reality TV show writers. In June 1705, George executed his plan for true love with mission, impossible flair. Disguised as Monsieur de Buch, he infiltrated the court at Ansbach, employing a sophisticated disguise. His objective was to find genuine affection while assuming a false identity, a scheme that defied expectations and succeeded. Despite George's elaborate plan, one person saw through his disguise: Caroline of Ansbach. Recognizing the European royal beneath the mask, she unraveled the truth, making history in the process. George's infatuation with Caroline of Ansbach, whether as himself or Monsieur de Buch, became apparent. The feeling was reciprocated, with Caroline finding George undeniably handsome. However, the complexities of their relationship went beyond surface appearances. The love story between George and Caroline unfolded like an adult fairy tale, with Caroline being an orphan and George emerging as her clandestine, affluent Prince Charming. While their union had elements of enchantment, the tale did not conclude with a conventional happily ever after. The summer of 1705 in Germany witnessed a swift turn of events in George and Caroline's relationship. A mere month after their initial encounter in Ansbach, the couple had already formalized the details of their marriage contract, a truly romantic gesture. Just a month later, they sealed their union. However, the early days of their marriage faced considerable challenges and nearly reached an untimely end. Shortly after George and Caroline exchanged vows, tragedy struck. Following the birth of their first child, Caroline fell victim to smallpox. George, deeply devoted to his wife, stood vigil by their bedside throughout her illness. Yet this marked only the beginning of a harrowing ordeal. Proximity to his ailing wife resulted in George contracting the illness as well, and for a moment the future seemed perilous for the young couple, but both managed to survive the ordeal. George's affections extended beyond his beloved Caroline. He harboured a fervour for combat. The aspiring king possessed a keen interest in military strategy, defying his father's wishes by participating in the Battle of Oudenarde. While his marriage had already subjected him to the threat of smallpox, the subsequent battle posed an even greater danger. Emerging victorious in the Battle of Oudenarde didn't spare George from peril. He narrowly evaded death as his unit faced intense attacks, witnessing casualties on all sides. Even the colonel from his ranks perished during the confrontation. The situation escalated when George's horse succumbed to the chaos. Miraculously, George emerged unscathed, albeit not without a daring act. George's survival at the battle might have been more than mere luck. Some believed it to be a form of divine intervention. The Duke of Marlborough, who led the forces in the battle, commended the future King George II for distinguishing himself, charging at the head of the Hanoverian troops. This display of leadership elevated George's popularity. Queen Anne ruled over Great Britain at the time, lacking direct heirs. The succession plan designated her cousin, George Louis, George's father, as the heir to the throne upon her death. In 1714, Queen Anne passed away, paving the way for George Louis to become King George I. Meanwhile, our protagonist assumed the title of Prince of Wales and heir to the throne. However, these titles changes brought their own set of dangers. While representing his father during a royal engagement, George attended the Theatre Royal on Drury Lane. An unidentified assailant sought to accomplish what even battlefield adversaries couldn't, a premature end to George's reign. Despite the assailant managing to harm one individual in the attempt, George once again emerged unscathed. Unfortunately, this stroke of good fortune earned him a formidable adversary. Join us in part 2 as we look at the next chapter of George II's saga. The monarch's thirst for conflict leads him to the Prussian-Hanoverian border, where familial ties become strained as he faces off against his own brother-in-law, Frederick William I of Prussia. The refusal of a proposed duel and redirected family feuds, this time with his estranged son Frederick, showcased George II's complex relationships. His temporary return to Hanover, an ill-fated sea voyage, and the resilient monarch's efforts to uphold appearances amid health challenges weave a narrative of political intrigue, familial turmoil, and personal resilience that defines this intriguing phase of George II's reign.